Well, howdy ho, friends of the farm. Today we're going to be doing irrigation, and we're getting set up for the spring planting, the summer planting for this year. And I learned a little bit from last year's setup, and it worked well. It was fine, no issues there. But one thing I noticed with the bigger garden is that north end tends to slope up a little bit. And I was running into the sweet corn kind of ripening at different rates and growing at different rates. That the south end, which was the lower end, seemed to be bigger at an earlier time than that north end. And so the only conclusion I can come up with is that it was kind of not watering equally from the bottom low end through the drip tape all the way up to that north end. So over the winter I thought about some strategies and did some research, and I'm going to be changing the way I do the irrigation system this year. So we're going to be doing some live action experimenting and see if we've eliminated the problem. So there are several areas that I'm making changes. The first one is that I'm going to be moving the main manifold that all the drip tapes, all the rows came off of, to the very north end. It's going to be on the uphill end so that water is going to be flowing through the drip tape downhill. I got to thinking that maybe water being pushed uphill through drip tape, it's going to come out of the lower emitters at a higher pressure than that top end. So the design is going to be different. I'm going to be running my main line all the way from the yard hydrant, which is on the south low end, all the way up to that north end, which is on the higher end. I'm going to be changing the diameter of the poly that I use to run it up there as well. Last year I used the traditional 1/2 inch poly, and I'm wondering if that's not an issue there, that it wasn't able to supply the volume of water that I need. So upgraded to 3/4 inch poly. So obviously a bigger hose, lower pressure to get it up to the higher end is going to be one of the other strategies I use. So yeah, so the 1/2 inch poly there. Once we get up to that north end with the 1/2 inch, the 3/4 inch poly, my row valves I've upgraded in size as well. So this was the size that I used last year, and you can see the diameter of the barb that goes into the 3/4 inch poly is significantly bigger as well. So volume should not be an issue in this situation here. It runs on low pressure, which you might remember. So I've got the pressure reducer I'm going to have it in the north end so that it's under full pressure up to that north high end, and then it's going to go through the pressure reducer once it's already up to the elevation that it needs, and then it's going to run down through the drip tape. Now the last piece of the upgrade is I was almost out of drip tape last year anyway. My roll was getting small, so I needed to buy a new roll. And I went with flow control drip tape. Now the claim to fame of this stuff is that it doesn't matter the terrain, whether it's uphill, downhill. Supposedly all the emitters emit water at the same flow, regardless of highs and lows. So we're going to put that to the test, and hopefully that's going to be a big contributor for a little bit more equal watering for the rows this year. So that's it for the intro. So we've got a little bit of work to do, and I'm going to take you along with me, and we're going to see how it goes. So we got a little bit of work to do. Let's get going. All right, we're at the yard hydrant, which is going to be where we tie in our irrigation system, and then we're going to run it along the front of the garden, the front of the greenhouse, over to the fence line, and then it's going to run the full length of the fence line way up to that corner. It's going to hang a right and go the width of the garden to over there, and will be capped off. So you may be wondering, I've got this little stretch right here of the garden that I'm going to be going across with the 1/4 inch poly, and my solution to that is when I need to till, run the tractor, I'm just going to disconnect it from the yard hydrant, spin it off, flop it over by the fence, do what I need to do with the tractor, reconnect it. Nothing's going to be attached to it that will prevent me from doing that. So that's the strategy there. So the first thing I'm going to do, shut off the water. We're going to take off this hose bib that I'm using, goodness, as a cap, and then this guy just threads right back on here. Okay, and then technically we could connect the 3/4 inch poly, but I'm going to wait on that, and I'm going to show you here in a second. Well, there's no real graceful way to unroll 1/2 inch poly that I know of, and it ends up being a little bit of an arm workout. I got 500 feet of this stuff, and to unroll it without it turning into a giant slinky, you kind of literally have to unroll it and not just grab one end and walk off. So I skipped the gym today, so I think I'll get my arm workout in. Got it all laid out. The 3/4 inch polys around that stake to keep the angle there. It runs the full length all the way up to the corner. Things are right, and we're going to go up and we're going to cut it right there where the tractor is. Okay, what we're going to be putting on the end is just an end cap, and this has a barb that goes over the end, and it just got a cap that once we get it on there on the hose, we'll be able to take this cap off and then flush out any debris that gets in there, and then we'll be able to cap it. All right, that barb I showed you, we're just going to slide this in here, and then this is going to tighten up, reverse threads, and compress it down. Alright, slides on there. Alright, we are good to go. So now we can take the cap off and we can flush the entire system out and then cap it. Okay, as I mentioned, the 3/4 inch poly is coming from the yard hydrant under high pressure, full pressure, all the way up here to where I'm going to be inserting the pressure reducer and the filter assembly. And I did that intentionally. I could have put this down there at the yard hydrant, but I wanted to keep the system under the high pressure as far as possible. All we need to do is just cut out a little section. Just slides on over the barb. Reverse thread, same thing here, and right there. Okay, so now we have well pressure to 12 psi through the filter for the drip tape and back onto the 3/4 inch at 12 psi. Okay, so the first section that we're going to be running irrigation to is going to be for sunflower transplants. And I've got a 12-foot section marked off that goes from the corner of the chicken coop run over there over to in line with the measuring wheel. And that's going to give me 4 3-foot rows, and we're just going to do succession planting. That's the plan anyway, throughout the summer. You can see I just tied in a little jumper section that's going to go, and then I'm going to put another T in here just for the width, that 12-foot span for the sunflowers. All right, so I have it teed off at the timer, another T right there, and it goes to a flush cap and a flush cap right there. So This 12-foot section right here is where we're going to be putting in the row valves, 4 of them, to run the length all the way back to the coop for sunflowers. So I told you we weren't going to connect to the yard hydrant quite yet. I'm going to take you back there and show you why. All right, so as you can see, we have the 3/4 inch poly crossing the road over there, and around the outside of the garden is, I call it a road, is where I drive the tractor and the side-by-side and everything. And I don't want to be driving over that section of 3/4 inch poly all the time and pancaking it. So I've got some old top rail chain link that we're going to be sliding over, and this is going to be what crosses the road, so I drive over this and I don't collapse the poly. Boom! Tractor proof. Well, that's it for today. We got the main line run all the way from the yard hydrant. We ran all the way up along the side. We hit the pressure reducer, the filter, inline filter, and then we teed off for the section for the sunflowers. I'm going to do 2 other sections. I'm going to have the big pumpkin patch down here, and I'm also going to get sweet corn, which is behind you on the camera, behind the camera there, but that's going to be a little bit later on. But we are a few days away from transplanting the sunflowers, which is going to be right here. And that's when we're going to be running the new drip tape, the pressure compensating drip tape, and hopefully that gives us some good results as well. But that'll be another video. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. You take it easy.